Some things in this world are so foul, so twisted, they make an honest man wonder why the Almighty ever allowed certain folks to draw breath. In the summer of 1893, just outside Ghost Ranch, New Mexico, the sky sagged heavy and the heat pressed down on the land. Dust clung to the skin. Even the lizards hid in the shade. Nothing stirred, nothing dared, except one man, Thomas Graves. He wasn't seeking trouble. He was riding home after bartering salt blocks and cartridges in town. A quiet soul, the kind who spoke little but carried everything in memory. As he turned down a canyon trail, he spotted something strange beneath a juniper tree. From a distance, it looked like a heap of rags. Then he saw flesh, pale, bruised, exposed. It froze him in place. A girl, maybe 20, maybe younger, wrapped in a filthy blanket, body frail as dry sticks. Her legs scratched raw, lips split from thirst and sun. Hair clung to her face in bloody tangles. Her eyes, though, were vacant. She didn't scream, didn't flinch, didn't beg. She just whispered in a voice like wind scraping over stone, "I'm filthy inside and out." He didn't need her to spell it out. The bruises, the torn cover, the empty stare, her body spoke volumes no tongue could. That sentence hung between them like smoke. Thomas stood still a long while. He had seen war, seen death, seen what men do when shadows hide them. But never had he seen a soul so broken it no longer feared anything. He asked nothing. Not what happened, not who. He simply stepped forward, set down his coat without a word, and lifted her like she weighed nothing at all. Not out of glory, not out of pity, but because that was the only righteous thing left to do. She didn't resist, just let her head rest on his chest, as if waiting for someone to finally give her permission to stop running. And in that moment, beneath that tree, with the sun burning the land, and the world too cruel to notice, a man who had lost everything met someone who had even less. He didn't know her name, didn't know her past, but he knew this much. Whatever pit she had crawled out of, she wasn't going back alone. The trail to the ranch was long, rugged, and silent. Thomas said nothing, nor did the girl. She leaned against him in the saddle, eyes closed, body shivering now and then, like her nerves hadn't yet realized she was safe. The ranch sat hidden behind a ridge of rocky hills, quiet and far from town, just the way Thomas liked it. No neighbors, no gossip, just weathered wood, dusty panes, and wind slipping through busted fences. He laid her on the old cot in the corner, fetched warm water, placed a clean dress of his late wife's on the table, then stepped outside, leaving her be. He lit a smoke, watched the sky fade from gold to rust. He didn't know what she'd do. Run, weep, smash something. But she didn't flee. Next morning he found her in the barn, sitting still, arms around a sack of feed, like it was the last soft thing on earth. She spoke nothing. He offered beans and cornbread. She ate slow, cautious, like someone who had learned never to trust food given too easily. Later she asked for a comb. It was the first true thing she said. He handed it over, watched her work through tangles in silence. Then once she asked, "Why didn't you touch me?" He studied her a long while before answering, "Because no man should have." She didn't cry, but her lip trembled, betraying the storm she'd been holding back. That night she didn't sleep in the barn. She curled by the fire inside. Thomas didn't pry, just sat outside listening to coyotes cry in the distance. And in that second night's quiet, something shifted. She wasn't safe yet, but for the first time she wasn't alone. What neither knew was that someone else already learned she was alive. 3 days passed with barely a handful of words between them. Thomas mended fences, chopped wood, hauled water. She lingered nearby, never in the way. He noticed her brushing her hair regular now. He didn't say a word. She didn't need praise, just peace. But peace never holds long out here. On the fourth morning, he saddled up, saying he was riding into Abeku. Quick trip, medicine, coffee, nails. She said nothing, but when he turned, she was already pulling on a worn boot she'd found by the door. He let her ride. The town was small but full of eyes. Trouble had a way of sniffing them out. They kept quiet through the general store. She trailed close, eyes low, but as they stepped onto the porch, a voice split the dust. "Well, I'll be damned. Look what the cat dragged in." Thomas turned. The man was tall, red-faced, reeking of whiskey even at noon. He smiled, but it was a predator's grin. She froze. The man stepped closer. "Didn't tell you, huh? We had us a bargain. Pretty little thing ran off before payday." Thomas didn't demand proof, didn't ask what kind of bargain. He just stepped forward and hit the man so hard his boots left the porch. Folks watched. No one helped. The man spat blood, grinning still. "You just made enemies, old man. You don't know who's behind me. My brother runs this county. You'll both be dead before week's end." Thomas said nothing, just looked down and growled low. "I don't care who's backing you. She ain't yours." They left town then and there, but the words trailed after them like a curse. That night, Ida sat by the fire, hands trembling. Thomas didn't comfort her, just poured her a drink, then one for himself. "It's coming, isn't it?" she asked. He nodded once. "Yeah, it's coming." The fire snapped and popped, sending sparks into the dark. Thomas sat still, jaw tight, while Ida stared into the flames. She hadn't said much since town, but her silence carried weight heavier than bullets. Out here, silence was louder than words. 3 nights later, while crossing a dried riverbed, Thomas spotted smoke on the horizon. Too neat, too straight for wanderers. He stopped his horse, narrowed his eyes. "Scouts," he muttered. Eda shifted in her saddle. "They're looking for me, aren't they?" Thomas didn't answer. He already knew the truth. The red-faced man wasn't bluffing. Someone powerful wanted her back. That evening, Thomas laid snares along the canyon ridge. He showed Ida how to walk with her steps inside his, so no tracker could tell 2 riders had passed. She followed, steady now, no longer trembling. Fear had hardened into grit. By dawn, the pursuers drew closer. 2 men, maybe more. Thomas didn't wait for them to strike. In the mountains, waiting was death. He led Ida higher into the cliffs, where the rocks split into narrow cuts. From there, he prepared the ground the way only a soldier would, rocks loosened, brush stacked, rifle ready. When the first rider came into view, Thomas fired. The shot echoed like thunder, and the man dropped. But the second didn't spook. He rode hard, rifle raised. Bullets whined against stone. Eda pressed herself low, covering her ears, but Thomas moved calm as a shadow, reloading, firing, then vanishing into the rocks. By nightfall, the canyon was silent again. One body lay broken below. The other had fled. But Thomas knew what that meant. Reinforcements would come. That night, while they camped in a small cave, Ida finally spoke. "Thomas, there's something you don't know." He turned to her, quiet. "The man in town. It wasn't just a bargain. I was kept in his brother's house. I saw things, heard things, names, deals, gold moving where it shouldn't. That's why they want me back. Not for who I am, for what I know." Thomas's face hardened like stone. He spat into the fire. "Then they won't stop, not ever." Ida met his eyes, her voice trembling but steady. "Then teach me. I don't want to run anymore." The next weeks changed everything. At dawn, Thomas taught her to load a rifle, to aim steady. By noon, he showed her how to track prints in the dust, how to read the wind. By night, he drilled her to move silent, to strike quick. She was no longer just a broken girl under a tree. She was becoming something else, someone who could stand, fight, and choose her own ground. But enemies aren't patient. One night, while Thomas was away setting traps, riders came. 3 of them. Ada heard the horses before she saw the shadows cross the firelight. Her heart hammered, but she didn't scream. She reached for the rifle Thomas had left, leaning against the rock. The first man stepped into the light, sneering. "End of the trail, girl." She raised the rifle, hands shaking, breath ragged. But she didn't lower it. "You'll leave or you'll bleed." The man laughed, stepping closer. He never saw Thomas behind him until it was too late. A single shot rang, and the rider fell. The others fled into the night. Ida stood frozen, rifle still raised, tears streaming, not from fear, but from the fire of survival burning in her veins. Thomas put a hand on her shoulder. "Now you know what it means to stand." From that night on, they were no longer just hunted. They were fighting back,